I've got here prepared all my tools and I'm going to hold them in my lap. We'll try to keep them in the same order as I need to use them. So from 7 to 1. This way I'll know exactly where to find the next tool and I don't have to kind of look through to find the right number of prongs that I need to use. If you want to create the exact same sample and produce 4 repeats, cast on 41 stitches. I also allowed just a few stitches on the edges. This is a good idea when, for example, if I want to use this for a garment and I want to have some plain stitches at the edges so I can sew the panels together. So I'm going to skip 5 stitches from the edge and pick up the next 7 stitches and transfer them all together 1 stitch to the right. On the right of the needle that received a second stitch, I'm going to grab the next 7 stitches and again transfer them all together 1 stitch to the right. Every time I'm identifying which needle has 2 stitches and move 1 stitch to the right of that needle, pick up the next 7 stitches and transfer them all together 1 stitch to the right. So I've done 4 transfers in total and I'm going to knit 1 row. For the next transfer, I will use a 6-prong tool. I feel like once we've done the first transfer, it's a bit easier to do the second one because now we can kind of see a bit clearer which was the first stitch that we picked up previously, and we can just move 1 stitch to the right of that eyelet basically. Every time we just have to make sure that when we're transferring the stitches to the right, the same needle receives a second stitch. So you can see here was a needle that previously received a stitch. I'm just going to push it forward a little bit, this one here. And now because we are transferring with a 6-prong tool, the eyelet will form 1 stitch to the right, but the same needle will receive a second stitch. So this way you ensure that you're doing the transfer correctly. And we'll repeat that across. Knit 1 row. Just ensure that you're putting the needles that you've emptied back in working position. Next transfer, I'll be using a 5-prong tool, and just like before, we're moving 1 stitch to the right of the previous eyelet. And again, the same needle receives a second stitch. Next transfer, I'll be using a 4-prong tool, and you can already see where this is going. With every transfer, we're transferring 1 less stitch than we did previously. You can see that the fabric gets distorted quite a lot because we're transferring quite a lot of stitches, and we're doing that every 1 row. And this is what will create that beautiful effect. It's really such a beautiful stitch, this one. Just making sure that I'm showing this clearly. You can see here, this is the needle that we emptied previously, and because we knitted 1 row, we have 1 single float on it. We don't have a proper stitch formed yet. And with every transfer, we're going to move to the right of that float. We completed the first section of this repeat. We'll knit one more row. Now we will transfer in the opposite direction. So for the next repeat, we are going to start again transferring using a 7-prong tool. I'm going to identify the needle that was receiving a stitch in the previous transfer, as in this transfer it will be the same needle, but it will just come from the other side. So you can see here we transferred this stitch on top of this stitch, and this was the needle that had 2 stitches previously. I'm just going to push it forward a little bit just so you can see it clearer. And now we'll transfer in the same on the same needle, but from the opposite side. And just like we did before, we're moving to the left of that needle this time and transferring again. Okay, so here's the needle that received the stitch. I'm going to transfer on the left of that needle. So we have now completed one repeat of the pattern. If you want to continue with another repeat, just begin transferring again, just like we did at the beginning of the video, to the right using a 7-prong tool. Here's a sample freshly taken off the machine. And here is a sample after being steamed. If you'd like to download a chart for this stitch and for one more version of this design, check out my Patreon. I will leave a link for it in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.